Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I've got another Remnant 2 tier list for you guys, as we've had plenty of time to see how the changes with the Forgotten Kingdom DLC have shaken up the landscape. We got buffs, nerfs, and new weapons to check out, and I'm very excited. So I'm going to start with melee weapons, because I've been having more fun with melee builds this last month than I have since the game launched. It's been absolutely a blast. As always with these tier lists, keep in mind, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. If you disagree, let me know in the comments down below. That's perfectly fair, but keep in mind, not everyone can run all the best builds, all the known builds. Some things might be wildly OP in one specific build, and that might lead you to underrate or overrate. Plus, your playstyle might affect your enjoyment with certain weapons as well. So just remember that before I jump in. I always get a lot of interesting comments on these ones, but they're fun to do for me, so I'm going to jump right into it. Anyway, we have the Atom Smasher first. This is a low A tier for me. It's kind of in between A and B. I think it's very good. It's my favorite hammer in the game, especially because of how quickly you can wield it. So that's why I'm going to put it in A tier for now. But overall, this one is very, very good. And I do enjoy it, especially not having an intrinsic mod, because most of the special melee weapons I feel like are just flat out better, whereas this one can compete for sure. Then we have the Blade of Adventure. I don't think this one competes at all. It's fine. It is a usable sword, but there's a lot on this tier list that just feel like they are underwhelming and they don't do anything because of how much you have to lean into what they do and how much better options there are. Now we've got the Blade of Gull. I love the aesthetic of this one, so I want to rank it a little bit higher. But again, I think this is a C tier weapon. It looks cool. I like the attacks, but ultimately, I am not a fan of it overall, and so that's why it's going to go down in C tier. I just wish it was a bit stronger. Then we've got the Bone Chopper. Again, another cool one that I like overall, but for me, it's just not enough to really replace any of the better options in this game. Now we're starting to get to some of the claws, and I am honest with you guys, I have not enjoyed using a single set of claws in this entire game. I'm going to put that at D tier, and again, if you are a claw lover, if you have builds with the claws, let me know share them with me in the comments. I would love to be proven wrong and have a really cool claw build, but overall, they all feel so bad to me that it's just really, really frustrating. Now we're going to get to the Edge of the Forest. I tried to make a build with this one, and I wish it was better. There are just options that I prefer, and I think just outperform it in what it does. It does have that high crit rate, which just got buffed, so maybe I need to test it out after the most recent patch. But overall, it's just not good enough to really compete. Now we get to an interesting one. The Iron Greatsword, I think, is actually pretty solid for a standard weapon. Some of these weapons just feel mid-level, but this one, because it's got such high damage, actually feels better than a lot of the other ones, and you can kind of lean into that high damage as well. Now we're going to get to the Knuckle Dusters. Again, I've not used a single one of these that I actually like the feeling of, and so that's going to really taint my ratings with them, but I just don't think they're very good. They are interesting, but just not good enough. Then we get to the Labyrinth Staff. I think this one is another solid weapon, and it can be used in certain builds to good effect. However, I think it's overshadowed by some of the more recent weapons we got, so that's why it's down in B tier, because there are other ones that I think just do what it tries to do a bit better. Now we're getting to the Ornate Blade, another C tier. Again, a lot of these ornate weapons, a lot of these standard weapons just feel fine. Ornate Blade and Ornate Flail, especially like I said, with the introduction of some of the new weapons we got, I feel like these have been surpassed so much that they just aren't really a consideration. So I'm going to put them down in C tier until we get farther. Same thing with the Rebellion Spear. Again, this is another one that I wish I liked, but the other options we have as far as spears are better, even with some nerfs to them. So just not really a thing that I'm a fan of. Moving on, we got the Royal Broadsword. Again, same thing. I'm going to go through this a lot, and it feels like this whole standard regular melee weapon tier list is going to be all lower tier, whereas once we get to the second options, those are all going to be much, much higher. Now we've got the Rusted Claws. Again, just not great in my opinion. Not a fan. Same thing with the Scrap Hammer. This is worse in every way that I know of as far as compared to the other hammers in the game. And the scrap hatchet as well. It looks kind of cool, but I've never once used that and really enjoyed it. Same thing with the scrap staff. All of these are the definition of mid in my personal opinion. Now we get to the steel flail. Again, I feel like there's other better options, but this one is fine. Like, you can definitely use it in certain builds if you really want to. I just think not good enough overall. I might have made a F tier based on what I'm seeing so far, but overall I think this is all going to be lumped together, and a lot of the ones down in D tier are just because I just don't really care to use them at all. So DF, whatever you want to call them, just not really all that good. Steel katana, steel spear, again, steel sword, and then vice grips. I may feel like a hater, but all of these just feel so mediocre, and none of them are a preferred usable weapon compared to other options we have. It's just, I wish, I can't see them buffing them because they are base level and they are supposed to be weaker than some of the stronger options. I just wish there was viable options in like hyper specific builds that I could try to use, and that's something that I don't feel like is the case. Now we are getting to the good stuff, because the Krell axe is phenomenal. One of my favorite weapons in the game. I want to put this, actually I am. I'm going to put this in S tier. Great applicator of shock. It can be used at range as well to applicate, and it just can really fit in a lot of different builds. Yes, it's not the strongest weapon in the game, but I do think the variety and the benefit that it provides, especially being a ranged option, just can throw it into a lot more builds than your standard. If you're not running a melee build, you can still use a Krell axe to great effect, especially if you don't have some other options that I'm going to talk about later. Now we get to the steel scythe. I wish I liked this one more. This one's probably going to be in C tier, but because of the ritualist scythe, it's just going to fall down a little bit because the other one is just better. And then the shovel, which is hilarious. You can really use this to get a lot of ammo, but as a melee weapon, it is not good. Now we're getting into the special ones, and these are the melee weapons that I'm really excited about. First off, we have the Assassin's Dagger, which looks weak initially, but its bleed application is fantastic. If you're running a melee bleed build, this thing can do some insane stuff, and I really, really enjoy it. Then we've got the Atom Splitter. Personally, not a huge fan, but I think it's fine overall. I think it does what it's supposed to do. I just don't like what it does. Then we get to the Dreamcatcher. I think this is a C tier actually, and some people might disagree. It's got usages in the game, but overall not for me. Same thing. Moving on to the Feral Judgment. This is going to be the first claws weapon that I rank above a D because it is better than them, but I don't see it being used all that often at all. And it's a bummer because I want to make a build with a claws weapon so bad because I feel like it would look cool and really be a lot of fun. It just doesn't do it for me. Now we've got the God Splitter. This one is hard for me. I think I'm going to put it in B tier. I don't see it run a lot. I don't run it a lot, but I think it does some effective things. So that's why I'm going to rank it a little bit higher there. The Hero Sword. Now this one is interesting because, again, I want to love it. I want to really enjoy it. I just think it's fine. It's okay. I'll probably slip it into B tier there. It feels like I'm putting them in B tier because they're special weapons, but that's because a lot of them have applications outside of just melee weapons, and you can use them for specific situations that you can't use other weapons in the game, and that's why I rank them a little bit higher. Now we get to the Nightshade, and this one is another one that I wish I enjoyed better. The lifesteal on it, the perfect dodge, you could make a build with it potentially, but again, it just doesn't do enough for me to really make me want to use it over some other options. Then we've got the Red Distaff, which I'm going to put up here. I'm going to put this in A tier. Now, this is a interesting one because I feel like it was better previously, but because of what it does and healing allies, you can add variety to different builds and use it in ways that I don't think you can with other weapons, so that's why I like it. But overall, it's good, solid, but maybe not spectacular. Then we're going to get to the Spectral Blade. This one is going to be another one that I do very much enjoy using, but after the nerfs, after everything, they did just buff it again, so I think it is going to go back into A tier. It's the best option for this type of playstyle, especially if you like using the backdash, but it was broken at one point, and now it's just really, really good. Now, next we've got the Stonebreaker. This and the Gas Giant, I think, are solid weapons, right? I think they're good, but I don't think they are good enough to swap out for some other options up here that are better. Like you look at the Atom Smasher, I like that over the Gas Giant, unless I'm just running a very specific corrosion build, for example. Smolder. This is one that I actually love. I think this is one of my favorite melee weapons in the entire game, and so I'm actually going to put this one all the way up into A tier. I do like it. I would actually put this as my highest A tier so far, just because of the things that it does are different from a lot of the other melee weapons, and I do think that the burn builds are a lot of fun, so that's why I do enjoy running it overall. Then we get to World's Edge. This is probably the best all-around melee weapon in the game, so I'm going to put it up in S tier. I know it's not what it was. It's been adjusted a little bit, but having to beat Apocalypse difficulty, it's always going to be really, really strong. And the versatility of this one, being able to run it in basically any build, is very, very important as well. So that's why I'm going to put that one a lot higher. Now we're going to get to the Abyssal Hook. This is one that I've seen some people run, and it looks like it's interesting. I've seen some stagger builds, but overall, it's not as good as some other options. I actually really like the Ritualist Scythe, though, and this is another one that I just, as much as I enjoy using it, I think practically it's not as good as some other better options as far as what it does. And you're really not going to use it as much in, like, for example, a status effect build. You could just use the Krell Axe instead and use it from a distance. I love the animations on this one, but total power level is not up to it. Now we're going to get to another of my couple favorite weapons. The Wrathbringer. I think this has a lot of versatility. It's really good in a lot of different builds, so I'm going to put that up in S tier. I think it's phenomenal, and a lot of people should be running this if at all possible. It is a very good weapon, and I think a lot of people understand that now, especially having been out for so long. I think it's actually really, really good. And another one that I think is actually really, really good is going to be the Crystal Staff. This one, I'm not going to put it B. I'm going to put this one also in S. And the reason for it, any melee weapon that can use at range has an intrinsic advantage because you have flying bosses, you have other options. You can use this more in the game than weapons, melee weapons that don't have any long distance type of range options. So just because of that, it's going to be higher, but I've seen some crazy builds with this, and I very much enjoy it. And then another one that I very much enjoy is the Mirage. Now, I want to put this one in S tier, but I think, honestly, it is going to be, I think it's S tier too. I think this is going to be how I line it up. I think while I have a lot more S tier than I originally anticipated, all of these weapons at the top are weapons I can include in a bunch of different builds. I can make use of what they do very, very effectively, and they just do a bit better than the tier below it. And in A tier, those are all also very viable. Same thing with B tier. Anything in B tier can be used pretty well overall, but they're just not going to be as viable with as many builds in as many ways as the level above it. That's why I have them ranking here. Now, if you disagree with me on any of these, let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure there are some of these that are cracked that I might have talked about and glossed over a little bit that you think I should definitely recheck. So at this point, instead of yelling at me, let me know in the comments down below. Show me a build with some of these weapons that I've ranked too low that I can try out, that I can test for myself, and see how right or wrong I was. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more Remnant 2 content. I like doing these build videos. I don't mind getting yelled at on YouTube. It's fine. It is what it is. Like, everyone's going to disagree, and that's okay. But my name is Jopa. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of good stuff. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.